Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas. Today I'm sitting down with Travis Thompson, who is the co owner and VP of Cascade Custom Pools. Excited to be jumping in and having some conversation today about the business, about this journey of business ownership and all the crazy things that can come along with the process of building business and running a business on a day-to-day basis. So Travis, thank you so much for being here, for taking the time to chat with me today. Why don't we just start with a little bit of background? Give us kind of the 10,000 foot view of who you are and your background, and tell us a little bit about the business.
Sure. I grew up in this industry, so it was I guess, my first job. Probably when I was like 9 years old, I was out cleaning up job sites and doing odds and ends and that kind of thing. I guess I would be considered a second generation pool builder. My father started Cascade in 1982, before I was born. Um, and so that's why I say I've kind of been in it my whole life. When I was, I don't know, growing up, I didn't necessarily think I would follow my dad's footsteps and take over the family business. It wasn't that I didn't want to; it just wasn't really hadn't crossed my mind yet. Um, and after attending a couple years of college, a software came out called Structure Studios or Pool Studio,
Hmm.
and I'm just going to kind of throw this statistic out there. I don't. It's kind of off the cusp, but I would say probably the average residential contractor, I would say 90% of them use the software. It's pretty. I mean, it's kind of taken over the industry. But 15 years ago, or maybe even longer, when it came out, I found out about it, and I was very interested in the 3D concept and making these beautiful drawings, because I was used to just very basic two-dimensional hand sketch stuff, or traced off of templates, and you're just so limited. And I grew up watching my dad hand draw stuff, which is kind of cool and it's sort of a talent in its own. But so anyway, I started working with the software, and at the time, this software company was doing I don't know, kind of like a meet and greet, and kind of a just to get people on it. And they had a little seminar at like the Cabela's in Buda. And when we went down there, and I was expecting to see, a room full of people, and there was two people. It was me and this older gentleman. And by the end of the little seminar or class, whatever you want to call it, I mean, I could probably teach the professor some stuff, just because I ended up knowing more than they did about the software, because I'd been messing with it for a few months and whatnot. But that's really what got me into the industry, was the design part, and just being able to see stuff in 3D. And I got really hooked on that, and started. My dad would basically, I would go out with him, or he would go out to a customer homeowner's yard, take the notes, whatever, get them back to me, and then I would come up with the designs. And after producing one, watching it go through the sales cycle, getting it sold, seeing it get built, it was really, really cool. It was like, wow, my brain came up with that. Now it's in someone's backyard and they're enjoying it. So that's really what was like, man, I think I might want to do this for full time. I really have a passion for it. Um, and I basically, my dad had so much work for me that I was making, good money. I stopped going to school, because it was just, this is what I wanted to do anyway. And fortunately, the best teacher I had was my father. And luckily, we worked really, really good together. I mean, we're best friends. I've got some friends that have tried working with their family, didn't necessarily work out so well. So I understand it's not for everybody, but fortunately, it works out for me. And yeah, so that got me into the industry. Fast forward, 15 years or whatever. I don't do near as much design work as I used to. But at the same time, I was doing so much at one point, I kind of got burnt out.
Hmm.
Now we have an in-house designer. I still do some design, but we we kind of cater to architects and custom home builders. So kind of by default, because of that, we don't have the opportunity to do as much design work as we used to.
Hmm.
A lot of our work now, it's an architect or a builder bringing us. a conceptual plan of a pool, and we kind of take it and critique it a little bit and make sure that it's functional, and add a little bit to it and hone it in, and then at that point, that's kind of how most of our projects get started off nowadays. Where a few years ago it was kind of us just coming up with the design, but we've gotten really tied into some good architects, which we like. They kind of feed us business, so we're not having to go out and market ourselves as much as some other guys. Um, at the same time, architects are very particular about things, so you've got to make sure that you're not stepping on anybody's toes, and it's a fine line when you're working with an architect on their design and you kind of giving them your 2 cents and whatnot. So I've learned things to say and how to go about certain things. Um, just from I've said the wrong things before and may probably offended some architects, but again, you learn. So, um, and I guess in a nutshell, we're a small, high end residential company. We just work in Central Texas. We might do 45 to 55 projects a year. We're good at that. We don't want to do any more than that. We've done more than that. We've done less than that. We've found that that's kind of our good, comfortable spot. And frankly, we could take on some more projects as a company, but we're pretty much sub based for the most part. And there are very limited high quality subs in our market. And if we build more than that amount of projects that I just mentioned, our subs couldn't keep up. So then we're forced to use guys that I would say are subpar, and then we're kind of building we're getting into a group of builders that we don't necessarily want to be. We just don't want to be production. We want to be hands on, high end, and focus on that. So that's kind of where we are now. My father's still involved. He doesn't. He's there when he would like to be. He's obviously involved in big decisions and whatnot, but the day to day, it's pretty much myself and our staff, and yeah, we're a pretty tight knit company, and most of our employees, I think our youngest employee, or he's been with us, I think almost 4 years now. We got some that have been there for 15 years. Our main project manager, him and I went to high school together, and he kind of started with me, so it's kind of cool to watch each other grow in the industry, and yeah, it's pretty much that's it in a nutshell.
I love it. That is a very complete picture of kind of the business and everything. I like had a question in my mind, and then you'd like cover it and answer it. It's fantastic. So when you look at the business so far, how many team members are you up to currently?
We have 11, including myself.
Amazing. And when you look at kind of your role today, because you mentioned, back in the earlier days, doing a lot more design work, not doing quite as much of that today. Kind of what hats do you get to wear? Do you focus most of your time on in the business today in terms of kind of like roles and things that you do?
That's a great question. I wear all the hats. We're always trying to delegate and to where I'm not wearing all the hats. But I think to a business, a pool construction business that's has a model similar to ours, you kind of need somebody that can wear all those hats. I mean, at some point. Now, you don't want to wear them all at once, obviously, but that can wear all those hats and make sure that the hats are fitting right. And so, I guess to answer your question, I would say half of my time is client relationship, checking in, answering questions. Like I said earlier, I'm very hands on with our homeowners and our clients. And homeowners and clients, in my opinion, are kind of different for us because a lot of our clients, like I mentioned, are architects and builders. So some of these clients I don't ever talk to ever. Some I talk to at the very end, which there's pros and cons to that as well. But there's a lot of me kind of stroking our clients, I guess, and answering questions. And I think we're kind of known to be very hands on, and I take calls from some of my clients later than I should, but we have that relationship, and I think that's why we continue to do a lot of work for some of these guys. And that, it's just like any relationship. I know if a certain person's calling me at a certain time, there's a reason, and they appreciate that. And I would say the other half of my time is honestly is looking hope. I do a lot of looking over construction drawings and redlining plans. We're very
Mm.
big on trying to get our plans as dialed in as we can before we go to the field, because it's I've seen so many issues just that didn't have to happen if it was just on paper. And the pool industry as a whole, I think, they've been done a horrible job at putting together plans compared to like home builders and just other construction industries. And I think that the industry's gotten a heck of a lot better in the past few years, really working on those drawings and getting, you spend an hour in the office will save you days in the field, getting all that down. So we definitely make that a priority, is making sure our drawings are the way they need to be. And I mean, there's sometimes I'll redline a specific drawing 4, 5, 6 times where, our CAD guy's like, come on, and it's like, well, these things need to be as dialed in and as perfect as possible. Um, so I'm constantly doing a lot of that, and that probably takes up more time at the moment than it should. But um, we're we've in the past year, we've like our plans used to be maybe 3, 4 pages. Now they're like 10, 12 pages long. And um, when I started in the industry, with my dad, he was more of I would say like a one man show where it was him and maybe he had a project manager, and that was kind of it. He might have an
Mm.
office. For the most part, it was him and maybe one other person or two other people. Where now, we've got 10 other people, and it's there's a lot more moving parts. And when it's just one man show, your plans don't have to be that detailed because it's all in your head. You're there. Um, you can do things on the fly, but when I'm not able to be at every job, you have to have detailed plans. So that's been very important, and I spend quite a bit of time looking over plans and making sure they're the way they need to be.
Oh man, I love that. So, out of curiosity, and I'll give some backstory on why I'm kind of going down this rabbit hole. But so you mentioned that your dad was kind of more of a one man shop type deal. It's transitioned now to a business that has 11 folks in it. What was the catalyst for that change? Were you part of that catalyst that helped kind of make that change, or was that happening before kind of you started coming in a little bit more? But what led to that change in the dynamic of how the
It
business was growing?
it was definitely pretty much 100% me wanting to do that. And my dad fought it for a while, and it came down to, fortunately, my dad did really well growing up. He worked hard, but he made a good living, and I saw that, and I'm like, man, this is great. But one thing that always stuck out was whenever we go on a family vacation, if my dad leaves, the company's kind of at a standstill. And I was like, that's we can figure this out and do a little bit better. And he just explained to me back then that, look, yeah, you can, but there are things that we're not going to be able to build the quality, projects that I like to build, being hands on and everything. And he's right, but if your staff is where they need to be with good training, good drawings, you can get pretty darn close to, and you have the ability to, have some work life balance, because that's one thing I've really tried to work on the last couple of years is, we built a business and a lot of change happened, and my dad finally was like, you know what, I'm going to take your lead. You've made some decisions that have really, done well for the company, and I trust in you. I'm not 100%. Um, he didn't 100% agree to it or want to do that model, but he knew that I was passionate about it and this is what I wanted to do. So he kind of just followed, and it worked out. I mean, there's a lot of learning curves and whatnot, but we went from pretty much no office to no staff to now we've got, an office, a warehouse, and 11 employees, 5, 6 trucks. I mean, it's definitely morphed, and he now sees the value of that, where we can all take a family vacation and we're still selling pools, they're still getting designed, they're still getting permitted, they're still getting started and finished. So that's huge.
And I love it. The backstory and why I kind of go down this rabbit hole. What I didn't mention when we first jumped on the call here is, even within our firm, one of my business partners is my dad, and I joined the
Nice.
business back in 2020, and it was very similar. He had his license and all that kind of stuff for the franchise, and it was just him, kind of solo business, all that kind of stuff. And we've morphed, over the last few years for a lot of the same reasons, right? It was how
Yep.
do we start making that transition? So I always love asking questions around, you know, family dynamics in business whenever possible, because I live it. I've been around it for a long time. Even back in the day, my dad worked for his dad's business, a moving company back in the day, and there's a lot of lessons that can be learned when working with family. So you had mentioned, at the beginning, that working relationship had always been very good for you and your dad, yeah, best friends, all that kind of stuff. What do you attribute that to? How did you develop a really good working relationship as you kind of went through this process in the business?
And that's a great question. And it's I think it comes down to just the way my dad, kind of the way he raised me, or I guess treated me growing up. I mean, he always gave me quite a bit of rope and trust. And my dad's pretty old school, and he comes from an old school family. Hardworking sharecroppers, where every dime that they had, they worked hard for. And he instilled a lot of those values in me and I do think too, like my dad, I have quite a bit of buddies that almost look at my dad as their dad as well, because he's has that relationship. He's easy to talk to. And um I can't really put my finger on exactly what it was, but I do think growing up, he treated me like a man at an early age. And yeah, I mean, he's still my dad and tells me he loves me, this, that, and the other. But at the same time, it's like, if you're gonna act like a big boy, be a big boy. And so he's kind of always treated me like a man from an early age. And um, because of that, I think I've really respected him. And I respect him, so he respects me, and we're into a lot of the same stuff, and we're just very similar. Like if he walked in right now, you'd be like, God dang, it looks like you, but 30 years from now. So I can't really put my finger on the exact, what it exactly is, but I just think that we were very close growing up. He spent a lot of time with me. He was never one of these guys that's like, oh, I need to go and teach, or I need to coach all your baseball teams and football and all that. He never had to be the guy on the sidelines. It's like, he wasn't the big sports guy, dad. He was just like, you do what you want to do, man, and I'll support it. And I think that I had a lot of friends growing up that their dads were more like, this is what I did, this is what you needed.
Mm.
And there was some animosity, I think, growing up. I could see through some of my other friends where I never had that. We just never really fought. I mean, the probably the most things we disagreed on was the new model for our business. And it was never like an argument or a fight or anything. It was more like, man, I'm just telling you what I know. I've seen other guys do different models. I know the type of product that we want to push out, and I have concerns, but at the same time, because I have respect for you, I'm not going to say we're not going to do it. And you've proved to me that some of the things that you brought to the table that I didn't necessarily agree on at the beginning ended up working out great to our benefit. So I'm gonna give you the reins, and we'll see where it goes. So I think just the respect is from an early age is where that relationship came from.
I love that. Personally, I 100% align and agree with the respect aspect is really important, and I think that respect goes both ways. And from what you just shared, it seems very clear to me that there is that level of respect for both of you, and go in both directions there. And I think that's part of what's worked in my working relationship here at our firm as well. Is we had respect, but that didn't mean we couldn't press on each other with different ideas and thoughts and
That's
be in
good.
disagreement
You
from time to time, but that didn't mean that we lost or had a breakdown of the respect factor.
know? And look, there's been things I brought to the table too, and then my dad, with his experience, shed some light. And I'm like, you know what? That's a good point. We shouldn't try that. So, it's not like everything that I want to do is, and there's a lot of times where I'm like, yeah, we also, I guess, admit and accept when, hey, I made a mistake, I'm wrong, my bad. To where that goes far too, and that's kind of how I've tried to instill in all our guys at our company is, look, guys, mistakes happen. Just fess up to it. Hey, I made a mistake. My bad. Let's learn from it. Not let's have an excuse to beat around the bush. It is what it is. No one's gonna get all upset with you. Let's just work on it. Let's not do it again. So I think whether it's family or business, it's kind of we all kind of treat it the same way. And then the next thing you know, our employees are kind of our family. So
Oh, 100% agree. Well, I want to be respectful of the time that we have, and I always like to kind of get into what I call kind of some rapid fire questions. And these are just kind of pull some additional wisdom nuggets out for the audience, that sort of thing. So I've got 4 of them here in total, meant to be more top head answers for each one of them. So we'll go as best we can with top head answers. But the first one, as you look back at your journey all the way through kind of this crazy thing in business and family business, kind of all of it together, what would you say for you is kind of your key to success?
um I think hard work and dedication. I mean, I know that sounds pretty cliche, but I mean, I've put in a lot of hours just self like teaching myself certain, things in the industry or new technologies that are, my dad has no idea about. And I mean, really just becoming almost obsessed with it, and like it's there's been other family members or like my fiance or whatever that's like, hey, you need to chill out a little bit. But it's like I have a vision. I'm working my ass off right now. We're gonna get there, and we have, and to where now I can pull back a little bit. But it is kind of a weird thing when you're so used to putting in 12, 14 hours a day, and then you finally get to where you're wanting to go, and then you're like, wait, I still need to. I'm still used to putting in all this hours, and you're like, wow, it's actually I can put in a 10-hour day now. I mean, it's still hard work, but I do think just hard work and dedication, staying at it, and communication is huge too.
Hmm,
Communicating with clients, homeowners, staff. I mean, if you don't communicate with your own people, there's going to be issues. So I think communication is a big thing for us too.
I love that. Now, kind of a slightly different question. If you could give only one piece of advice to other business owners, other entrepreneurs out there, what's one piece of advice you would want to give them?
Get thicker skin. Don't necessarily just get super in your head about when someone doesn't necessarily agree or you make a mistake. I mean, I've beat myself up and stressed myself out over mistakes, and it's like it happened. I learned. I'm not gonna beat myself up over it anymore, because now it's starting to wear on me where I'm not making another sale or something like that. So just not don't when you make a mistake, own it and then carry on. Don't let it get to you too much. And
Like,
people, you can't make everybody happy all the time. That's one thing that I was stuck up on for a long time, is just trying to make every single human that I had a encounter with through business, as happy as possible. And it can be difficult sometimes. So, but knowing
huh,
that you're doing the best job, that's all you.
I like that. That's a good piece of advice. What's one book that either you're currently reading or maybe have read most recently?
Um, Probably Atomic Habits, I think, is my
Hmm,
latest one. Probably my first book that I actually read on my own, which shoot, was probably right out of high school. And I used to hate reading. I was one of those kids. But it was also was because I was forced to read stuff that I didn't, have a passion for. But
mhm,
Rich Dad Poor Dad was the first book I read by
huh,
myself on my own that I just couldn't put down. And I mean, that was years ago now, but that's a great book. I think Think and Grow Rich was probably a really good book that I've read as well, that I've kind of referred back to and read certain chapters over, over the years, reread them. So,
Those are some phenomenal recommendations. Either I've got
and
some of them on the shelf behind me and some in my Audible, and man, those are some good recommendations for sure.
well, I lied. Actually, the first book I ever read on my own was Jimmy Buffett's book, A Pirate Looks at 40. I read that in high school, and that book I couldn't put down. Um, so it's another good one.
Nice. Final rapid fire question. If you could choose only one area, and you only get to choose one area in your business where you could take some magic dust and just sprinkle it all over that one area, and it would be now 10 times better when you woke up tomorrow, where would you choose to put that magic dust?
It would be like, I would say, like personnel for, I guess, not warranty calls, but just troubleshooting certain equipment. The equipment's advanced so much in the past few years of automation that it's hard to keep up, and it's very easy to have a little issue, with automation, or the pump or something, and it's just such a simple thing, but it's just so hard to find good work. So it would be in, yeah, I guess, maintenance or warranty, something like that.
Love it. So before we get to the final question, for those that are in the audience that want to continue to learn a little bit more, maybe follow some of the things that you're doing, etc., where can we advise them to go for more information?
Um, you can go to our Facebook and Instagram. I mean, to be honest, I haven't been super active on it the past couple years. I mean, we're on it. We just don't post a lot, and honestly, I mean, it's a great problem to have. We don't have it so much in the past few months, but I mean, there was a point where we were over, a year and a half out, to where, I mean, we didn't even want to post content because we're just, upsetting people by telling them, there's a waiting list, so we might not even be able to get to you. Um, but our website, we update, different awards that we won, and different things that we're doing, maybe monthly. So that's a good spot as well.
Excellent. I'll make sure to put those in the video description below. So once we wrap up, make sure, those of you that are watching, go click the links, check it all out. But Travis, as we wrap up, I like to finish on one final question. That question is simply, what is most inspiring to you today?
I mean, I think back to what kind of got me into doing this is what creating a beautiful backyard, and that, came from my mind or our mind, or even if it's with an architect, and just, us collaborating, but watching a project come to life, and then watching a homeowner get to enjoy it. And or I have a couple of builders that I'm watching them have a very successful real estate company, because they're building high end spec homes, and these pools are bringing another $150,000 value to their project or whatever. So, but yeah, just watching these things get constructed, and from start to finish, and seeing the final product.
That is so cool. Well, I appreciate your time. This has been absolutely, so much fun. Hearing a bit about your journey, and I would personally, I always love hearing some stories around, those that are in business with family members, and just some of the fun things that come along with it. So I appreciate you being here and sharing a bit of your story with us today.
You got it. You got it.